Something's shifting in the nonprofit sector. Experienced professionals are done waiting for permission, and they're building consulting businesses that pay them what they're worth on their terms. This is Fracture, the podcast about the business of nonprofit fractional consulting for consultants and the people who are about to become one. I'm Cindy Wagman, founder of the Nonprofit Fractionals Network. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I am joined today by Tanya Wall. Hey, Tanya.
Hi.
So happy to have you here. You are a fractional fundraiser and you have kind of a small agency, but before we dive, maybe even not so small anymore, before we dive into what your business is now, let's just start with going back. How did this journey start for you?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Cindy. I'm so glad to chat with you today. I can't believe it's been over a year since I joined, but I wasn't really sure what I was doing next. I was a bit of a crossroads professionally. I'd spent my entire career in nonprofit, both on direct service side, leading small nonprofits, and also on the fundraising side. And I had seen somebody post something about fractional fundraising. I'd never heard the term before. And I started listening to the podcast that you had at the time to learn more about it and just sort of binged all the episodes. And by the end, I thought this is exactly what is next for me. I had thought in the past about consulting, but I was confident in the work that I'd be doing with clients, but I really struggled with how to actually form the business. And so when I heard somebody refer to sort of this being like the business in a box, I was really excited to learn more.
Mm. So you joined our program, our network, and you obviously that was not that long ago. Tell us what your business is like now.
Sure. So I had my first client very quickly, less than 30 days after joining the network. I had my first client. And then very quickly was what would be considered fully booked and started to feel like I could maybe grow a little bit more beyond myself and brought in a conscious subcontractor to help. And very quickly that evolved into something a little bit larger. And I think the main reasoning is that I love doing the client work, but I also love the aspects of when I held leadership positions, kind of coordinating teams and bringing different specialties together to support small nonprofits. And so that's where things have kind of developed and evolved. And so the fractional fundraising is still the core service, but we now have a small team and are able to provide, for example, if a small nonprofit has, which is often the case, one sort of executive director doing all things, wearing multiple hats, we can bring in people to support fundraising, but also maybe marketing or other aspects that they may need help with.
Amazing. I'd love to hear how your team is structured. I feel like there's lots of different ways people have chosen to structure their teams. And so how did you build that out? Like, who did you hire first? What do people do, et cetera?
Yeah, so initially I hired another fundraising generalist, which is sort of what I consider myself to be, somebody who could work behind the scenes, supporting me with client deliverables in a variety of ways. And then from there, I brought on somebody who could help with some of the more digital fundraising aspects. So setting up workflows and automations for clients. And then somebody else came on board who had a specialty in social media and marketing. And that was wonderful. But what I realized is I was still the main client person. And so was still kind of at capacity as far as bringing on any new clients. And so a few months ago, I decided to evolve again and bring on what I'm calling account managers. So people who can actually lead the client relationship. And sometimes that might be with me involved in terms of the strategy for the client or just different ways. And other times the account manager might be completely independently leading that client relationship. And then we still do have our team of specialists that can be brought in as needed on different projects.
So cool. And Yeah, like I think at some point you just have to get a little bit out of the work in order to run the business. Let's talk a little bit about the like mindset of running a business because it's one thing when you're just you and there is actually a lot of mindset around that, but when you have a team, it's a little different. So, tell me a little bit about that evolution, like how you evolved as a business owner and things that have unlocked your success along the way.
Sure. So in the beginning, I think I really did have some imposter syndrome aspects to my own mindset as I was calling myself a consultant and a little bit of like, who am I to go into organizations and do this? And very quickly, I realized that what I was bringing forth had a lot of value and was very much appreciated by the organizations. And I think the piece that was really clear to me was that being able to bring in that senior level expertise that a small organization might not otherwise be able to access. And so my mindset very quickly shifted to seeing just the opportunity to support organizations in a greater way. And I think that has really helped as I've continued to grow the team and look to see the way we can offer the most value to organizations.
Mm. Um, what has, how have you sort of, how do you think about now, like what's next for you as a leader and as a business owner?
So for me, I'm looking at a bit of a niche instead of being an agency that offers everything fundraising. We are starting to focus more on individual giving, and so that's everything from starting an annual giving program for an organization, helping them with direct mail, to major gift programs and planned giving programs, and that's where my passion lies. And I think there's just so much opportunity with being able to provide that consistent implementation and oversight for organizations to really grow a program that provides so much flexibility to their funding. So that's in terms of services, how things are evolving. And then the other aspect of that is I'm based in Nova Scotia. And so I really see like the opportunity and the need on the East Coast to
Mm.
provide these services. And so I've also been shifting focus to, although we do work with organizations across Canada, and I have people on the team across Canada, Ontario, British Columbia. But as far as the focus for the agency, we're really focusing on Atlantic Canada right now.
Love it. And there is, okay, there now you've mentioned these like two layers of niching, right? One is in terms of scope of work and really being specialized in the individual giving, and then one is being geographically focused. Tell me about uh the that evolution or like how it feels to you to be niching and what you're excited about versus what you're worried about.
Yeah, it feels scary, to be honest. It's worrisome because there's a feeling of, uh, if something doesn't quite fit, turning down business, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. And so especially early on when I started, I felt like I was growing the business and it was really hard for me to turn something down that came my way, even if it didn't quite fit.
Mm.
And what I have realized is that it's important, not just for me, but for the organization, for there to be that fit. And I think in a way, niching can be a strength where we're sort of seen as providing expertise in a particular area, whether that's the geographic aspect and the knowledge of the area or on the style and type of fundraising that we're focusing on. So I am cautiously hopeful at this stage that it's going to actually be a strength for us.
Yeah, I'm 100% convinced it will be. Have you had how far into this niching are you, and have you seen any early signs of that success?
So probably about 2 months since I've updated my website and kind of been putting that out there more publicly. I was at a conference recently where I was able to bring brochures and that. So it's really sort of out there now. And yeah, just in the past week, I've started to see inquiries coming and they are specific to that focus. So it's really exciting to see already in a pretty short time frame that our audience that I think we're best suited for is getting the information that we're out there.
Mm. Um, okay, for anyone who's listening to our conversation, who's like, oh, this idea of scaling beyond myself is really intriguing. I'd love for you to share, just based on your experience, what considerations or like wait, kind of like advice to your younger self, right? Yourself from a year ago. Like what should they be thinking about? What are the pros and cons, let's say, of um growing beyond yourself?
Yeah, I think initially I felt very reactionary. It was a period of time of rapid growth in terms of
Mm.
bringing clients on. It was also getting into the end of year campaign season. So it was a lot at once. And so I didn't really take the time to be very strategic about what was going to happen next. I was just sort of, you know, learning as I was going or trying to make the best decisions as I could. And I think just in retrospect, just taking a little bit of time, finding a quiet place, writing things down, consulting with somebody else who's maybe done it would have been helpful to just kind of consider some of those pros and cons. And things like, are the people coming on subcontractors? Will they be employees? Will there be set hours? Will it be based on client engagement? Like there's a whole lot that I didn't really think about beforehand. And so those would be the kinds of things that I think that would be helpful. And a little bit of that future planning. I'm not one to plan out 5 years ahead, but I think 12 months, 18 months out, having a bit of a structure around what that looks like would be great and something that I wish I'd done at the time.
Mm. Um, but you figured it out.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is like the biggest learning or sort of evolution that you've made that you're really proud of? That you're like, I did that. I fucking like I figured it out. And look at me now. What's the thing that you look back at and you're like, yeah, I got through.
Yeah, I think the learning was that and this kind of ties into your question about mindset too, is
Mm.
that the pace and the kind of need to be hustling and that familiar feeling of working within a nonprofit of morning till late at night type wasn't necessary to be successful in a fractional fundraising as a fractional fundraising consultant. And in fact, not only could I create something for myself, but for the team and even kind of share some of it back with the organizations we're working with that
Mm.
there are other ways to have a bit more balance and I'm really into technology. And so, we've really, as an agency, leaned into efficiencies in that way. And so I'm pleased that I've quickly moved away from that belief that it was sort of needing to be a hustle type situation.
Mm. Okay. I'm so here for that. But also, you touched on something that I think is so important, and it was really important for me when I built my agency, which is not just like this is good for me, but it's good for the people I employ. And I
Hmm.
would love for you to talk a little bit about how you create a business or a company that like what are some of the practices that you've put in place that are maybe against the way our sector has done it or that embrace things like balance or create the kind of business or employer I guess
Hmm.
that like we all would wish for.
Well, it's probably something that is also still coming together. I'll say I haven't figured it all out. But early on, like I spent a lot of time with each individual on onboarding before anybody was involved in project work. So learning the systems, like we use Motion Project Manager, and there's a lot to it. And all of these different systems, if they can be optimized, can really be good for everybody. And so ensuring that people felt really good and comfortable with the systems was a big part of that for me. Learning each individual person's style, whether they
Mm.
preferred to have video calls and learn together or whether they wanted to kind of jump in and check in as needed. So that's something that I think is really important to recognize the different ways that people do appreciate getting to know systems and ways of doing things. And then just a lot of documentation, trying to make resources really accessible and easy for people. We are spread out, like I said, across Canada. So it almost feels like there's always somebody doing work for collaborative cause when we factor in the time zones. And so, um, we've talked about like just because turn off your notifications, like put in the hours and the days that you are involved and then don't have it ringing on your phone outside of that. And
Mm.
so I think people do feel really good about that because we all know when each other is around and when we're not. And I think that really helps.
I love that. Um, Anything that's aspirational that you haven't done yet, but you're like, I'd love to get to the point where we can do this for our team.
I would love for us to be able to come together maybe once a year in person. We've done a little bit of we happen to have a couple of us at a conference at the same time, and that has happened. But I do really, I really do appreciate the opportunity to come in person with the team and also with the organizations we work with. As much as we are entirely remote, being able to go once a quarter or once a year to be in person for a planning session. And that's kind of also what's inspired the desire to work geographically closer to home. Um, because I get a lot out of that. And I think it seems to be that others do as well. So I'd love to have like a collaborative cause retreat day or weekend. Well, if people are traveling, a weekend perhaps. And yeah, I think that would be really cool.
I love that. I did when I had a team, we did that and it was so fun. We had like planning and actual like work, but
Mhm.
also like we got our nails done
Yeah.
in like a little what do they call it? Airstream trailer.
Uh-huh.
And like had meals and it was so fun. I highly recommend. But it is hard obviously if you're
Yeah.
traveling from far away. So
Right.
um amazing. All right. Any any thoughts on like ideal size, like how big you are interested in growing your business? Obviously, you already mentioned like you're not thinking 5 years down the road, but
hmm
um how like do you think about continued growth? Are you happy with how big things are now? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't see us getting significantly bigger. I do see perhaps one more person coming on the team that is Atlantic Canada based who can be that client lead. Because right now our structure is that I am still the only one in this region. So that would be kind of a next step. And then we would have, in addition to myself, three people who could, depending on their interests and time amount of time of work, we could take on, additional clients in that regard. And I think that would sort of be a really comfortable place to be. And then the growth outside of that would be things like maybe somebody, a project manager coming onto the team who, again, can kind of give me a little bit of space in oversight on that so that they could be becoming an expert in motion and setting up those workflows and doing some of the things that I'm currently doing. It would just give me a little bit of a chance to do more of the business development um, and webinars and being out with people a little bit more.
Awesome. Any final thoughts for someone who's considering building an agency with a fractional model?
Yeah, I think there's so much opportunity. I love the idea that there are others out there doing different kinds of fundraising that we can, partner with or refer to. So I don't think that there's any shortage of work. And if there's others out there who, like me, enjoy that um, uh, coordination aspect of teams, I think it's a really great way to still have that opportunity to work with people in that way.
Amazing. Tanya, thank you so much for joining me. Where can our listeners find you online?
Yeah, so we have our website, collaborativecause.ca, and I'm on LinkedIn, Tanya Wall.
Amazing. All right. Thank you. And of course, to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Cindy.
You've been listening to Fracture. Subscribe wherever you're listening and come find me at nonprofitfractionals.com/subscribe for more of this goodness in your inbox every week. Now go build something better.